Good afternoon. Let me introduce everyone who's up here. To my far left is Howard Permit, President of Metro North. Next to him is Darrell Irick, President of MTA Bus. Immediately next to me is Tom Prendergast, President of the New York City Transit Authority. And to my right is Helena Williams, President of the Long Island Railroad. Let me reiterate some of the things that we talked about this morning and go into better detail on this. As you know, New York City buses are at full service right now. Limited commuter rail service on Metro North and the Long Island Railroad will begin today at 2 p.m., and I'll go over the specifics in a second. And limited New York City subway service that will also be supplemented by what we're calling a bus bridge will start tomorrow, and that bus bridge will be from Brooklyn to Manhattan. Bus service is attempting to run on a normal weekday schedule today. We're being hampered by the heavy delays on the roads due to the traffic. The system, as I said earlier, is set up to accommodate 2.3 million people a day of regular riders, but we're also adding to that the 5.5 million regular subway riders. We're moving through. Later on today, we'll give you an estimate of how many passengers we've been able to accommodate. Limited subway service will be restored on 14 of the Transit Authority's 23 lines tomorrow morning. They will not be able to run in New York City below 34th Street because of the lack of power. Some of our stops will be at 42nd Street. Some of our stops will, in fact, go to 34th Street. We will be putting up posters and signs throughout the system. We will also be putting it on our website, mta.info, and we'll be providing it for all of you for visuals for your readers or viewers. 3 of the 7 flooded subway tunnels under the East River have been pumped free of water, and they will be available for service until power is restored. The bus bridge that's going to be established from downtown Brooklyn will use 330 buses to deliver commuters to Manhattan from 3 major locations in Brooklyn where subway service will terminate. That will be Barclay Center, the Atlantic Terminal site, Metro Tech, and the U Street Station, which is in Williamsburg. And we'll be using special lanes going up 3rd Avenue in the city and returning down Lexington Avenue to make stops at major intersections along the way. We're not able to go from Brooklyn to Manhattan. So many of our subway lines go from Brooklyn to Manhattan. But what we're going to be able to do is get the folks from other parts of Brooklyn to downtown Brooklyn, essentially, and then they'll be able to pick up a bus free of charge, of the bus that is, and then going and continuing on to various different locations in Manhattan. For those folks coming from the north, whether it's northern Manhattan or the Bronx or Queens, you'll be able to continue to come across into the Central Business District and be able to terminate at 42nd Street, possibly some of them at 34th Street. We're not able to, as the governor mentioned, due to the lack of power south of really 36th Street in general from the city, to be able to get folks any farther south from that. I will tell you our plan and our overall strategy is that is for this service to come back, as I said, basically rail by rail, switch by switch. Every single day we will do everything we can to make the service more robust to get back to where we were before Hurricane Sandy hit us. Let me go on to Metro North for a second. As of 2 p.m. today, in about 45 minutes, Metro North will be able to restore limited service on its Harlem line between North White Plains and Grand Central Terminal. The service will operate every hour, and this special schedule will also be found on our website. Today, off-peak fares will be in effect on that train, as well as Grand Central Terminal will also be opening in 45 minutes at 2 p.m. this afternoon. Remember, Grand Central Terminal is more than just a place that's used by Metro North. It's also a retail operation as well as food service. And so the terminal will be back open at 2 p.m. this afternoon. By tomorrow morning, the railroad anticipates operating a close to regular weekday schedule on both the Harlem line between North White Plains and Grand Central Terminal, and on the New Haven line between Stamford, Connecticut and Grand Central Terminal, in both directions. Railroad forces continue to work in all other areas and will restore service into various different sections beyond North White Plains and beyond Stamford as soon as it's possible. All Metro North's customers should hold on to their October monthly passes as well as their most recent weekly passes. They will be valid for travel through next Monday, November 5th. I haven't mentioned anything about the Hudson Line. The Hudson Line is one where we've had the most significant amount of damage on the Metro North side. We'll have more information on that tomorrow as to what service will look like when we come back on the Hudson Line. I'm not going to talk at all about when that might be. We're still beyond going through still doing the assessment as well as the major reconstruction works that will be necessary on the Hudson Line. The Long Island Railroad. Long Island Railroad is going to restore hourly service today between Jamaica and Atlantic Terminal. That, too, is starting in about 45 minutes at 2 p.m. this afternoon. Beginning tomorrow, customers will be able to access the bus shuttles from Barclays Center into Manhattan directly from our terminus in downtown Brooklyn. Long Island Railroad anticipates implementing a shuttle service between Jamaica and Penn Station later this evening. This is dependent upon a successful testing of power substation at Long Island City, where we have 2 of them. Both of them need to be up and running. We need to make sure that there's redundant power service. We always make sure that we have a backup in case one substation goes out. It's our hope and expectation, best scenario, that be able to work with the feeders later on this evening. Long Island Railroad's goal by rush hour tomorrow morning is to restore hourly service on the Ronkonkoma branch from Ronkonkoma directly into Penn Station, and on the Port Washington branch from Great Neck to Penn Station. Let me also talk for a second for those New York-based reporters. The Long Island Railroad has 4 main branches: the Port Washington branch, Babylon branch, Huntington, and Ronkonkoma branches, as well as our service from downtown Brooklyn into Jamaica. Our primary obstacle in restoring service right now is power at our substations. Along the way, we need that power to feed the third rail, the electrical power to feed the third rail, and we currently right now have more than 20 substations remaining without power. We're working very, very closely with LIPA to coordinate the work crews necessary and to make it a very, very high priority. Long Island Railroad off-peak fares will be in effect on all Long Island Railroad trains. Customers will be advised to hold on to their October monthly passes as well as their most recent weekly passes, and they too will be honored through next Monday, November 5th. And on the Long Island Railroad, if you have come on board and pay with cash until next week, there will be no additional fees charged for what we normally call the onboard penalty. With that, let me ask any of the presidents if they want to say anything, or do we want to go directly into Q&A?
Question.
Q&A?
Q&A?
Yeah.
Q&A, yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the buses and whether they will have priority lanes and how many priority lanes they will have?
We were working with the city on that. We've requested priority lanes. We're not prepared to talk about it at this time.
Manhattan and Williamsburg bridges. No.
Brooklyn Bridge cannot have commercial vehicles on it.
Why not?
It's the law.
Can the law be suspended given the emergency?
For safety reasons, they have very low-hanging parts of the bridge. It's very similar. I mean, our buses are too tall to go through the various different gantry points on the Brooklyn Bridge.
And access and egress from the bridges is better on the Manhattan and Williamsburg bridges.
Right.
Joe, do you have an estimate of how many subway passengers you will be able to accommodate on those 14 lines?
It's a reduced headway. First of all, it's going to be a patchwork. As Joe said, we're going to be able to take people down to 34th Street, in some cases 42nd Street. Because of the power problem in Lower Manhattan, we can't have trains there. They can transfer to the bus network. The maximum headway we can run at those terminals, because we normally don't turn trains there, is trains every 10 minutes. So we won't be able to, we'll be able to carry many people, but in a longer period of time. So we'll be asking people to come earlier, come later, leave earlier, leave later, spread the rush hour.
And where will these passengers originate from? Are we talking from
From the outer boroughs. But basically, the damage that was sustained to the system, as the chairman talked about, was under-river tunnels were severely damaged due to flooding. And then we had some sections of the outdoor sections of the system, like Dyer Avenue, Brighton Beach, things like that in the outer boroughs that have trees down. But the majority of the service would emanate from the outlying boroughs, as it normally would, come into the core in Manhattan from the north and from the east in Queens, and downtown Brooklyn from the south.
So we have it straight. So there'll be subways every 10 minutes.
There's going to be a detailed service alert that'll give you the relative frequencies, but basically 6 trains per hour, 1 every 10 minutes.
Before to talk a little bit about this service, our overall goal is to start getting the system up and running. It is not going to be as robust as our customers are used to. We are going to every day provide more and more service as we keep going on. What I will tell you, however, is that every single day more and more is going to come back. I would like to, our customers need to understand that we want them to participate and be part of the solution to this traumatic problem, and fully understand that things are going to be not the way they used to be, but the headways will be 10 minutes instead of 5 minutes. Yes, excuse me a second. Go ahead.
Any subway lines that will not be running?
There's a number of them that won't be running. The number 3, the number 7, the B, the C, the E, the G, the Q, and the Franklin Avenue and Rockaway Park shuttles.
Can you repeat that list?
The 3, the 7, the B, the C, the E, the G, the Q, and the 2 shuttles.
The C and the Q run over to Manhattan, right? Is it a power problem?
It's a variety of different things. It's a power problem once they get into Manhattan, yes, and other factors. But for the majority of the issues affecting what we can run and can't run are the under-river tube problems in terms of flooding and the power problems south of 34th Street, 39th Street in Manhattan. Newtown Creek. That's flooded, yes.
And the damage is as severe there as what you're dealing with?
When the tunnel floods, the first thing we do is pump it dry, and then we see how much damage is done to the electrical equipment. And it's the same order of magnitude. It's a shorter tunnel, though.
It's still not pumped out.
No, that's correct. We've pumped a number of tunnels dry in anticipation of the flooding that occurred. In some cases, we removed signal equipment in anticipation of that. But generally, when we pump the tunnel dry, with the exception of some extenuating circumstances, the damage generally is something we can deal with and put back in service. But that's the way we go through the process.
Could you list the lines that are running, re-up the lines that aren't running? Is it possible to list those for us?
Sure.
Or will be running partially?
Yeah, go ahead. I've already provided the no service ones.
Okay. The number 1 train from 240 2nd Street to Times Square. The number 2 train from 241st Street to Times Square. The number 4 from Woodlawn to Grand Central. The number 4 from Borough Hall out to New Lots Avenue. The number 5, the Atlantic Barclay Station out to Flatbush Avenue. The number 6 train from Pelham Bay down to Grand Central Terminal. The shuttle will run between Times Square and Grand Central. The A train from 168th Street to 34th Street, Penn Station. The A train will also on the other side go from J Street Metrotech stop out to Lefferts Boulevard. The D train will go from 205th Street down to 34th Street at Herald Square. The D train on the Brooklyn side will go from Barclay Center out to Bay Parkway. And there's also going to be Express Pacific stop at 36th Street. The F train. The F train is going to go from 179th Street down to 34th. This is in Queens.
At Queens,
right? In Queens. 179th Street in Queens. It'll make all of its stops down to 34th Street, and then the F train will be able to go from J Street, Metrotech to Avenue X. Don't be with him one second. the J train, Jamaica to U Street in Brooklyn, the L train from Brooklyn Junction down to Rockaway Parkway, the M train, Myrtle Avenue, Broadway, and to Metropolitan Avenue, the N line from Ditmars Boulevard down to 34th Street at Herald Square, and finally the R train from J Street in Metrotech down to 95th Street in Bay Ridge. It's really important for our customers to going back to my prior comments, that they understand that as soon as we're able to bring more and more service back, we will. We will be providing those updates on our website, mta.info. We'll be using social media and all the various different parts of social media to get that information out. And I think it's important for our customers to communicate with other customers, different ways in which they're able to get into the city, taking advantage of one line over another line until the full service is back.
The water or the power, and the estimate of about how long it will take before we are running up to full.
It is water and power, and you have to dewater first, and then you have to have the Con Ed power be able to be provided, and then you test all the circuits, and then you restore service. We've got an ongoing dialogue with Con Ed with respect to south of 34th Street, what lines give us the biggest return on the investments they make in getting the lines back up and powered in relation to the service we can run. So as Joe said, as the chairman said, as we make those improvements, we would add that service.
Do you have any idea which lines those would be?
The two we're focusing on right now are the Lexington Avenue corridor, the Joralemon Street Tunnel is dry, and the Rutgers Tube, which is dry as well. That's the F.
Any estimate on when things might be running back?
No, other than the fact that we're working with Con Ed in terms of priorities and the focus resources. We have a very good level of coordination with them.
Can you tell me about the buses? Will they be making stops essentially the same as the subway is?
I'll let Daryl talk in detail, but the bus bridge will basically be taking people from the upper part of Brooklyn and downtown over into Manhattan along that Lexington Avenue, 3rd Avenue corridor, and I believe the stops are at the major thoroughfares.
It'll be the major thoroughfares simulating subway service at that point.
So, for parents who have children in school that go from Brooklyn and Manhattan, how much longer should they plan to get their children to school?
Oh, I would say add at least an hour or more to the commute.
And when you're doing the bus bridge, and you're going to go up the Lexington Avenue corridor, which you know is an incredibly busy subway corridor, how are you comparing the amount of bus equipment you're going to have running there? The
330 buses, that's the plan now. We're working closely with the city, Commissioner Cedar Khan, to facilitate that and to coordinate that. So we're in the middle of that right now. We're not ready to speak to that in specifics right now.
It's a bus bridge of that size is very difficult, and as the chairman said, even though it's difficult, we think it's better to provide service and let people get in. New Yorkers are very resilient, but it's a difficult service to provide.
Is it fair to view that as an enormous version of the shuttle service you already have to provide if you have, part of the subway line down for maintenance?
That's correct. That would be just a very long bridge and a very long shuttle.
We hold on one second.
The system will be stressed to handle.
So what's going on just on this side of New Haven? How bad is the damage on the New Haven line?
On the New Haven line? The New Haven line was severely hit by trees that came into the wires and pulled down the catenary wires on the line. The way the storm surge worked and the winds worked, they came in, and particularly on the south side of the New Haven line, there were trees all over, the wires down. We have significant amount in one spot in a little bit east of Bridgeport by Fairfield. Everything is down on the tracks right now. So our efforts have been, as I think we mentioned, is we're working our way from west to east so that tomorrow we can run a portion of our regular service, hopefully a significant portion from Stamford in to serve those communities, and we'll work our way further east as we can clear the lines. The other problem is that we have 4 movable bridges, and the bridges went underwater in the storm surge, and much of the equipment now has to be examined to make sure they're safe as well in terms of operating over those bridges.
Joe, can you give us any scope on the miles of track that have all inspected and cleared, and the number of miles of track to go, amount of signals that have been replaced, anything like that?
Let's break it down by each one of the assets. Long Island Railroad goes first.
We have worked hard to restore service on the Jamaica to Atlantic terminal. That was one of the areas least impacted by the storm. We were able to do a, track power signal inspection and run test trains. I'll have to give you some mileage on that. We're 700 miles of track. We're concentrating on our 4 mainline services plus this little piece of, the Brooklyn service. So, we've already done probably well over 100 miles of track. We've removed about 144, trees. I'm just going to echo the comment that Howard Permit made about Metro North. We still have significant portions of the railroad with trees down, power lines tangled, and we have to work, very slowly to get those tracks cleared. And then we have to make sure we have the power, and then we have to test the signal system for restoration of the entire service. We run test trains before we put any customers out there.
In terms of New York City Transit, we've got approximately 212 route miles, probably over 600 track miles. For the services that we're restoring in the outer boroughs and coming into Manhattan, a lot of that is 2- and 4-track railroad, and we will have inspected that through a variety of ways with an inspection train and/or walking that track. So before we put it back into service, that's been inspected. We've done limited inspections south of 36th Street, and almost no inspection of detailed track inspection on the tubes that are underwater and flooded. So rough guesstimate of percentage, it's well over 60%, maybe even larger than that, but I can get you the numbers.
Howard?
On Metro North, we have over 700 track miles. We have seen most of it, inspected most of it at this point, that we not all of it, but we have a reason. We don't have anything that's underwater, so we've been able to inspect most of the track. So I would say we've looked at 90% of it at this point. However, that in many places we were describing is wires down, tracks down. The other thing, wires down, pole lines down, trees on the tracks. The other problem is many of our substations had water come into them, particularly on the Hudson line. That's just basically in the last 12, 18 hours, the water has receded. So now we're also having to investigate the condition of substations to make sure that they're good before we put them on. And I mentioned these 4 movable bridges in Connecticut. We now have to investigate all that machinery to get them ready. The other point to make is also in preparation of this storm, we removed many of the switch motors from the switches in locations that flood because we know that once salt water gets in, they'd be damaged. So we also have to start to put those back. So there's a significant amount of work that's needed to get the equipment and the infrastructure back into a shape that we can know we can safely operate.
Just from a fact point of view, the entire MTA network has 2,047 track miles. You can stretch from here to California based on the amount of track we have here in the MTA region. That's including all 3 of our services.
One last one.
How many of those 2,000, you said 2,047?
2047.
And how many of those 2,047
I'll get you the
How many of those were?
We'll get you the breakdown on that. But by that, they just did it by their operating agency.
What about the subway pass, the October monthly, or the capacity pass?
I don't know if we made a decision.
We haven't made a decision yet on that. We have not made a decision.
So did you say earlier that the MTA has already requested from the city DOT to be able to use bus-only lanes or high-occupancy vehicle lanes?
There have been conversations, and quite honestly, one of the reasons I stepped out was to take a phone call with the city. I'll let them make their announcement in a little while.
Okay, and why wouldn't that be something that was anticipated all the other anticipation that went into knowing the storm was coming down to taking loaders off the tracks? Why didn't anybody think that right away you would need to be able to move buses if the subways were not?
We do that. We do that on a contingency basis on a day by day if there's a water main break or whatever. And the level of coordination with the city is phenomenal. Seriously.
Right.
So there was a level of expectation that would be met, and it is being met.
Right.
Yep.
The coordination with the city has been extraordinary. On behalf of Jeanette, it has been working well, and it'll work better every single day. I do want to make one comment, too, about our customers understanding that we're going to see crowding. We're going to see crowding not just on the buses, also on the subway system, as well as on the commuter rail lines. This is limited service that's coming back. It's not going to be what we had last week. And I ask for their patience and understanding based on the extraordinary event of Hurricane Sandy. We're going to come back. We're going to come back even stronger than we were before, but until we get there, I'm asking their patience, which is why I want our customers to also understand they're part of the solution to this problem and helping us. Think about changing your time of day if you can when you go to work, or alter your schedule. Work with your employer about flex time and other issues like that while we go to this period of service, limited service, but every day having ever increasing service.
And what about the proposed March 1st fare increases? Any idea that they might get pushed up before March 1st?
Pushed up before March 1st, not a chance. We're going to start our public hearings in due course in accordance with the legal process that's been put together.
You don't think that they would begin before March 1st?
None.
They were.
Not a